Welcome to the third and most likely the last show for Truth Speaks, but never say never, right? So, there's going to be the intro music was music that my father, Louis Scott Scotolaro had on his show for many years here at Peg TV called Geppetto's Room, where where the tagline was, "You don't have to be creative, you just have to be you." And he interviewed a lot of people all those years from the Rutland community, politics, civics, you're right, social services, progressive, transformative thinking. That was what my father, Louis Scott, and I keep saying Scotolaro because that's the full name, but he used Louis Scott for most of his life in business. And so before I get into talking about my father, who recently passed and transcended on 9/11/2025, it was a Thursday night up in Colchester, Vermont, and he passed at 9/19 after 3.5 days there, but 4 or 5 years battling an illness. And I do want to read something that I wrote on his behalf over the course of those 3 days. And because we all lose our beloveds, and it's part of the natural pattern of existence here as hominids on what I call planet pain or Mother Earth, I want to recognize everybody's relatives and beloveds who have passed recently or many years ago. I honor everybody's passing, and to those who have to survive and remember them and love them, even though they're not around. You have my prayers, aho. So this is called The Tide. Is that you, Dad, on the whispering tide? I heard your laughter there under a knowing moon, atop the 4 winds of time, upon the rush of water sliding back and forth to the beach and welcomed into the one sacred prayer of the sea. Was you and me, my father, on the tide, except I must stay on the sand a while longer before rolling back to the ocean to find you. I sit beside my transcending father, my hero, and the best of his kind to me as a son, in hospice, waiting for the moment to enter the ocean of consciousness, one mystery of the eternal. Go there, Dad, soon as you can, as you can, and I can't swim out to the waiting ones, but you can swim out to your waiting ones. The majestic masters, sages, your loving guardians who will guide you along the dark path back home, the one home made just for you in the light. Go there, Dad, and sleep as you are right now in this room of waiting. Go now without guilt, as you've not been a burden. You are a blessing to a son. You were my father, Louis, and I was your burden in life. You've been my stoic oak, warrior, seeker, and my best friend, our true samurai. It's been you, Dad, who carried us all, never us carrying you, but now we do. In your honor, sir, I sit here holding space for you on the journey to the afterworld. I hold your hand and your heart and mind together, yet separate, for I cannot ever know what it's like to be dying, but I am in my way suffering a death by letting you go as you asked us to. The bark falling from mother tree, laying so close on the forest floor, but unable to reattach, am I. Is that you, Dad, on the whispering tide? I heard your laughter there under a knowing moon, atop the 4 winds of time, upon the rush of water sliding back and forth to the beach, and welcomed into the one sacred prayer of the sea. I shall see you soon again one day before the seas become dust. I shall see you again when I go from seed to husk. I will hear your laughter then, Dad, on that sacred day rolling out to the tide, but not on this day. I love you all of my life. Your son, Christopher. In separateness lies the world's greatest misery. In compassion lies the world's true strength. And that's the Buddha. And my father, Louis, walked a beautiful Buddhist path. I wouldn't say it was formal, not part of a center or a group, but my father meditated all of his life in one shape or another. And we all grew up watching him sitting in a chair, no matter what the season, particularly in the wintertime with the wood-burning stove, his hands like this, breathing. And although the Buddhist path is not my path, I'm more of a Oglala Lakota, American Indian guy. We talked about that for years. And so any of my agnosticism and seeking a spirit path came from my father, Louis. And all of my creativity also came from my father, Louis. Excuse me while I scroll a little bit to try to find some other things. Lou indeed lived a full life of imaginative, creative, inventive eccentricities, like the unique traveler that he was. Of all the people that showed up on the 27th, this past Saturday, from Rotary, from PEG, family, friends, relatives, it was a beautiful day up on 9 Bausch Lane in Chittenden, the home he purchased and kept going since 1968. We all reminisced about his laugh. We all have examples of his laugh in photos. Some of them will appear on this video of him laughing. He had this infectious, epic cackle, very high-pitched laugh. And I laugh that way sometimes. I've tried to laugh more like my father, Louis. What a handsome guy. Now you know where I got all my good looks from, right? If I can be, well, not really that honest. My father was much better looking than I ever was. But the point is that levity and laughter and humor were what he was all about. He wasn't very solemn all the time. So we all reminisced about his laugh. In the old days, when he ran his business, he ran his own medical marketing device business. So in the late 60s, early 70s, he worked for all the major pharmaceutical companies in New Jersey, even though his office was in Manhattan. So Lewis Scott Associates, Inc. was first located at 118 East 25th Street, and then it became 22 East 21st Street in Gramercy Park, and that's where I remember. We all worked for him. My sister Stacy and I, over the years, did a lot of work for him. And he had 2 floors in that building, and in whatever floor you were on, wherever you were in the office, you could always hear my father's cackled laugh from outside, down the hall, upstairs in the elevator. And it was memorable. And, you know, again, I will carry that laugh for the rest of my life. Now, in terms of what he did here, so he left an indelible footprint into all of the advertising he did with sales presentations and Salesforce paradigms, and transformed how pharmaceutical devices were made and advertised for and sold directly to doctors back in a time when that wasn't really an easy thing to do, because every pharmaceutical company had an internal art department or marketing division. But because he was such a brilliant salesman and marketer with his creativity, the presidents and product managers and directors hired him to work with, and that was inherently conflicting. There was a lot of tension, but he did it, and he made a lot of money doing it for a very long time, 35 years before he retired. And when he did retire to Vermont, he never stopped using his agile mind. He never stopped being creative. He never stopped being transformative. So anybody that knew him then, or in Ravna, working hospice, or working for the hospital, or being a Rotarian, the people here at PEG TV with the Geppetto show, all of his many dioramas that he made, this is just one of them. There are 300 of them. And I brought a little display that we had for his memorial. And when my father was trying, he never sold them. He displayed them. He gave them away. He showcased his dioramas as a way to continue all of his creativity, like I said, that he wasn't using for business. So the artist, in his own words, and I think I can read a little bit here. I mean, he basically, my work is a call to action. It's a reminder that each of us contribute to the solutions, a visual nudge that we bear responsibility with, informative narratives that help to explain what is happening and what might be done about it. He continually quoted people. There's some quotes on here. There were actually 2 of these green posters that he would bring around. And the tagline was, "Experience the wow." And this is one of the things I didn't say on the eulogy, but everybody understood. My father was wow. Lou Scott Alara was a wow kind of guy. And so when he wrote all of his commentaries, this is just another footprint he left indelibly in town. Hundreds and hundreds to the Rutland Herald that Stephen Pappas and Liz Wyman, who wrote a beautiful tribute to my father in the Herald. Again, he was trying to use transformative creative thinking in those commentaries and editorials and essays. He wrote as many essays as he made dioramas. So what am I really saying about my transcendent father? He never stopped. He never stopped using what he knew was good and karmically right practice, which was giving back. He wasn't taking after retirement. He was giving back. And he did it in very, very unique ways. He did it in a beautiful way at the Rutland County Parent-Child Center when he rebranded the entire agency when I worked there for 6 years as a program director and counselor, and did a lot of community outreach there. He rebranded the entire nonprofit organization, which was the only nonprofit he ever worked for. He helped create one PCC place that, as far as I know, is not even honoring all of the hard work that he did branding it, because I will say this, unlike my father, who was kind and compassionate and probably a lot more patient and professional in his activism or actionism, I'm not. I'm pretty outspoken. I never had any vested interest in Rutland County. I was here for far too many years watching the town and the county and now the state of Vermont decline. My father tried to help and compel Rutland County to be better than it was. I always knew that it was never going to really rise out of the quagmire that it's in, which is old world thinking and Confederate Civil War thinking in the state. There's a lot of good progressive things here. I might be a glass is half full. My father was the glass is full kind of a guy. So I don't want to devolve a little bit, but I saw the decline here. And a little bit of history. This whole flatlander BS that a lot of first, second, third generation Vermonters, if it wasn't for tourism, you'd have no state or income. My father talked about tourism for many, many, many years, including the original advertising campaign for all of the people who never lived here to come up, which was Vermont is the beckoning country. And that was in 1968 and through the 70s advertising campaign. Well, what's Vermont beckoning today? What's Rutland County beckoning today? I don't think there is much of a vision. But when we first moved up here to Bausch Lane, when I was 5 in '68, my grandparents from Paramus, New Jersey, followed us up. And my grandfather went into his own printing business and had a very successful franchise that he bought into called the Copycat, which was on Wall Street for about 25 years. And so we all put in our time and creativity here. In fact, I guess creative thinking runs in the family on my father's side and even my maternal grandmother's side. My grandmother, Jean, didn't want to call the shop the Copycat. She wanted to call it the Prince of Wales, Prints of Wales on Wall Street. And that building across from the co-op eventually became the Brock building. So again, with about 15 minutes, 13 minutes, what's here? This is a shot of my father in, looks like college, maybe in early high school. That's him dressed up there as a Santa Claus, because he was Santa Claus. Among all of his doppelgangers, and also known as, he was also an incredibly invested man into Christmas. Growing up, his father never gave him a great Christmas. He didn't have a great relationship with his father, Anthony. And so he vowed when he became a father to have a different life rearing his children. So he gave Stacy and I and everybody that ever knew him up until last year incredible Christmases where the gifts were scattered everywhere. So he became the Italian Santa in many, many ways. I wasn't going to share the photograph here, but this is what we led him out of the hospice room. And McClure Miller Hospice was one of the most brilliant examples of caregiving I have ever seen. And they know that. And so the Tree of Life quilt and the American flag, because my father was a veteran, honorably discharged, was a beautiful, beautiful closing of those last 72 hours or more of my father's existence here on planet Pain, Mother Earth. And let's see if I can say a couple more things here that are very important. A lot of this I already read. There is a beautiful morning, a Lakota morning song, which I'm not going to sing. I sing it all the time now, but I'm gonna speak it in Lakota because my father already received the Buddhist prayers from a Buddhist priest named Noah, who we asked to come and do that from the Vermont Zen Center, and it was beautiful what he did on Saturday. But mitakula tokia ilale nitakuya ke cha onichi lepelo cheawauwe otechiklo cheawauwe otechiklo heachea ohu. And that translates into whoever it is you have left somewhere. You have left somewhere. Your relatives are looking for you. They are crying. They are coming crying. They are coming crying. And it's a great hardship. And so it is a great hardship to lose somebody so enigmatic, eccentric, eclectic, and egalitarian as my father, Louis Scotty Scottolaro. His nickname was always Scotty. That comes from my grandfather, Anthony, who was also called Scotty. So for the 89 years, Pop, 2/7/1936 to 9/11/2025 at 9:19 p.m., you graced this planet with all that you were and are and will be here and in the afterworld realm. So you are going to travel well on your Buddhist bardo. That's the belief system there that I won't go into too much. What I spoke about over the weekend was one of his big mantras to his children in his whole life was books are your friends, because he was a voracious reader. Not so much fiction, but nonfiction, like all of his essays. I took the mantle of writing fiction for the last 30 years because in honor of him. In the old days, when he was trying to go into his own business, because he was an entrepreneur, he built his own business from nothing. He used to write teleplays and send them into the Twilight Zone, most of which were never accepted, and he was pretty good at it. But I took that mantle and wrote a plethora of fiction for years and years and years. And I still do, and I will until the day that, I die and transcend. That's my hope. If I learned anything from my father, you fill the well, you keep giving yourself more knowledge and information, and you plug into spirit. And so that's what that is all about. So when I was very young, I was always being told about Cicero, Plutarch's Lives, Hemingway. You name the author, the great literary authors and philosophers, Socrates, etc., etc., etc. I was reading those books at a very young age because I was quite prolific and precocious as a young man. Maybe Tourette had something to do with that. But the point is that books are your friends. So I don't read as much as I used to. I think in memory and honor of my father, I'm going to start reading a little more. I'm going to go to the Zen Center and maybe explore that. Meditation a little bit more. Because, like I said, my spirit path is the Oglala Lakota. And that's a lot different. But we're all going back to source. And so what else can you possibly say about somebody that gave you so much? I think, again, whether it's repetitive or not, it doesn't really matter because I don't think I'm going to come back to PEG TV. And quite obviously, either is Louis Scott Olaro. Because that's life. I think my father left his mark. There's an old, in fact, of course he did. Everybody that came to the memorial knows that. And there's a lot of other people in this town leaving their marks. And that's my wish for Rutland, is that it gets out of its own way. But there's an old naturalist expression that every time you walk into a forest and you leave a footprint, you're immortal. And so being a naturalist his whole life, and my sister and I growing up in the woods of Vermont, we were privy to all of the environmentalism and naturalism that was going on at the time in the late 60s and 70s, and what was coming from him in terms of advice and all the reading. I would urge anybody, I know there's copyright issues, so I won't go into too many details about book titles, but there's a plethora of nonfiction and text written about what this planet must do politically and socially and environmentally. In fact, of the 300 dioramas that my father created over the 25 years living up here, many of them were environmental and dealt with climate change and animals, etc. In fact, in honor of my father, while he was still present and with us, I made several World War II dioramas to honor him, because I'm pretty good at it. He taught me how to make dioramas when I was just a little guy in Washington Township, New Jersey. And so he got to see those dioramas, because most of them were all about World War II buildings and armament, and there's a whole industry of that that's grown internationally. And I'm going to do my best to give these dioramas away and maybe offer them for like a museum to be seen, or use them for what they should have always been used for, which is educational devices to stimulate the imaginations of children. And we always spoke about that, and kids loved it. So even though he wrote corresponding narratives about what all of his dioramas meant to him, he always said that anybody can look at these and make up your own story. And so that's what I'm going to do, because I'm a storyteller at heart. My father was a storyteller, and he sculpted and wrote a beautiful life up to 89 years old. And I will always, always be in debt to who he was. A son could never have asked for a better father. Could never. And of all my accomplishments or whatever I could have achieved at 61, film and movies and Hollywood and, social work and all the other stuff we all try to pat ourselves on the back about. My proudest achievement was just being Lou Scottolaro's son, Christopher. And he knew that, and I told him that over and over and over again throughout his life. He was an inspiration, and he was a guru to me. And he will continue to do that, hopefully, before he transcends, and maybe he'll reach nirvana. His karma was that good, and he doesn't need to reincarnate and have a rebirth. Who knows? Who knows? He was an inspiration. And what I tried to do for the young non-blood son that I raised with the mother, compromised mother, through 82 Grove, and I talked about that on the first two Truth Speaks. I know that when I transcend, I was a father to a little boy in dire need of being called son. And so, to you, little man, and to my father, Lewis, I am in debt to being privileged to know you both. I will see the boy again. My father, I'll have to wait a while on the tide because I have to stay on the beach. And I don't really know what else to say in the last 2.5 minutes. I can ramble on pretty good, I was born and raised in New Jersey and New York, and we can certainly talk. But I think, as one friend said, and I really love the marble statuary in Rutland. In fact, he got the ideas in Rapid City many, many years ago. We took a vacation out in South Dakota where they had the presidents in bronze. But my advice to the alderman and the mayor of the town is maybe you want to get rid of that ridiculous moronic dog trying to detach itself from the invisible leash. The visual image of Rutland is being trapped and trying to get away. Never liked that statue. Maybe you want to have a statue in bronze or marble of Lewis Scott, Scottolaro. If I had the money, I would commission it myself, and maybe one day I will. But I do love the statuary in Vermont, using natural marble, and I think the effigies are great. Lou didn't stand for trying to escape Rut Vegas. Okay? What he stood for was compassion, transformative thinking, progressiveness, paradigm shifts, not myopia, honoring newness. And for all the good things happening, you might want to put his bust up there. I couldn't think of anybody better to represent that. So to all the Rotarians and to Peg TV and to all the diorama making and to the Rutland Herald and to all the great work and the people that my father associated with, particularly the Rotary, you have all my respect, guys. Thank you for listening and embracing and honoring my father last Saturday, the 27th. You are all great people. And this state and this county is better for my father's presence. And that's all I can say. I love you, Pop. I will see you again. Toksha ache. I'll see you again. Aho.